I stopped playing Destiny a while ago. And it's not for the same reasons as most people. I just got burned out of the game really early on during the raid. I was doing the raid repetitively, and I was pretty on top of stuff. There's still stuff in the game that I didn't do, like Court of Oryx. I saved up a lot of those runes, and I didn't know what to do with them. And then I learned how to do Court of Oryx. I did a couple runes, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And that was the end of it. But what I'm going to talk about today is the overall how Destiny did for me, and where I think kind of Bungie, there's a lot of YouTubers and other people who like to point out where the company did wrong, but every company makes mistakes. You're not really an authority on any of this as a user. There's a lot of corporate background, and it's not really something that you can act as an authority on. Like, Bungie, you made this decision, it was bad, learn from it, that sort of thing. In hindsight, hindsight is 2020, but in the moment, when you point out to Bungie as a company this was wrong, they look at the numbers, they don't look at the community. If they were actually listening to the community, they would have fixed a lot of the problems, but listening to the community is only part of the plan, and I'm going to explain what I mean by that. So, when they listen to the community, they have a few things in mind. The first thing that they have in mind is, what is the community saying that we can benefit off of? Which is just the corporate psychopath. You don't see people, you see dollar signs. Now, for those of you who don't know what the corporate psychopath is, it's essentially the fact that a company will act in ways that may seem unethical, but that is because they are not built to be ethical. And Bungie as a studio isn't necessarily what's driving Destiny. It's Activision, the publishers, the higher-ups, essentially the people whose job it is to make money, fulfill the contract, and have happy executives. So, with that out of the way, everybody knows the basic they want money sort of thing. So you have that factor, and then you have the community factor, which is run through the money filter. Essentially what they're doing is taking the community suggestions, seeing what would make money, and passing that through the money filter. Only good ideas that will make money will win. An example of this would be the rewards card for the Sparrow races. It was released when Sparrow Racing was released, and Sparrow Racing was advertised as a free event for those who had purchased the Taken King. If you had gone to Tess Everest, however, you would have found that there was something a little extra packaged in for the developers when they released this free event. It was a $10 rewards book for achievements or something. It was overpriced. It was about $10 for a little book of achievements. $10, I don't think I would spend any money purchasing something like that, but for some lucky people who got in on this early, it was eventually patched, but for some lucky people who got the thrill of finding a glitch, you didn't really have to complete the Sparrow Racing, or you didn't really have to buy the book to purchase the rewards. You simply had to complete the Sparrow Racing portion and then go to the book, because you could open it from Tess and purchase the rewards even though you didn't technically buy the book. It wouldn't show that you had completed, but it would still give you the rewards. Why this was possible, I'm not sure, but it had to do with very shoddy codesmanship, I would assume. Not only was it overpriced, it also was buggy, and this comes out with a free update, so it's slightly deceptive. I'm not going to say it's totally deceptive, but just after throwing that word out there, I understand that it's now on the mind, but it's kinda scummy. It's kinda deceptive marketing. You say you have a free event, you release paid stuff on the side of it. You should have included the microtransactions, like, oh, if you do this, this, and this, like, oh, and you can purchase a rewards book, like, put that in the trailer, see how well that goes over. And it was buggy. It was pushed out just to make money with a free event. People were so hyped up for Sparrow Racing. Of course, some people with bigger wallets than others would totally hop on that. Like, oh, this will probably help me Sparrow Race better than other people. The cosmetics didn't really do much, and it was a limited time event. So not only was it kind of worthless, but you're not even sure if it'll happen again, at least by the making of this video. There's probably going to be some Sparrow races in the future, but if you've seen some of my, or one of my earlier videos, I don't have a lot of videos out yet, you probably would have seen that I was kind of upset about the lore implementation of the Sparrow races, the sort of just leisurely racing through danger zones or darkness zones when you're essentially a savior of the galaxy. It didn't really mix well with the lore of the world. It also skipped out on an opportunity to let us glimpse at the last city, because I think that's where Sparrow races would be needed the most, where we don't really interact that much with the people of Earth, and a lot of them probably think that we're good for nothings who are just in the tower. They don't actually get to witness our accomplishments firsthand. Now that's just one deceptive marketing thing that really got me off of Destiny. It's those sorts of small things. The emotes were also kind of weird. The silver was also kind of weird. They said, or Bungie came out to say that they would use purchase DLCs, such as microtransactions, those sorts of things, to fuel DLC in the future, which essentially sounded like a very good idea from the get-go. Have us spend a little bit of money here, have the people with extra wallets space to support the rest of the community via these sorts of microtransactions. But no, when Sparrow Racing came out, they also had the overpriced and yet very buggy microtransaction sorts of deals, which means they're pushing out shoddy content for triple the price, because I don't think that racing rewards book was really worth the money that it was listed under. So that's one element. Another element is Bungie shows that it really doesn't understand how MMOs work. I've been playing MMOs since I was but a wee lad. Since 2005, when I got my first desktop computer, I've been obsessed with role-playing games. I played RuneScape. I was one of the newbies. The first holiday event as a member that I did was the one where you win the Windtumber tree. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge to those who know what that is. I love MMORPGs. I play Minecraft, and my server that I run is based on, or uses, MMORPG mechanics. In fact, a lot of the mechanics on my server, the questing sorts of things, are inspired by Destiny. I like to model things after Destiny. Destiny is an inspiration to me, or it was for a while. At least the puzzle elements, the crafting, the design of the raids, those sorts of things inspire me. The puzzle mechanics, the seemingly meaningless things that you can't understand until you go into the Grimoire to read the backstories, the lore, all that. The Destiny lore is one of the most intense lore that I've ever read, but it's also not in the game, which, for a lack of better... I'm not sure how to phrase this, but many people have touched on this already, how Destiny's lore isn't in the game, and how the wealth of it is off-screen, and I don't want to burrow that as deep as many people who are more eloquent at speaking than me have already done. So I will leave that in bed for now. When Destiny was released, I don't think they realized how dedicated people would be to the game. I mentioned how I played RuneScape. It takes months and months and months of grinding and dedication to get anywhere in that game, including there are tons of quests to do in that game. You cannot get to endgame content even after 1 year of playing unless you are extremely diligent, and even then, it takes months to get max in a single skill, and there are over 12 skills. I know there are more than that. I haven't counted recently, but off of the top of my head, there are more than 12 skills. I think 13 skills or 14 skills are free to play. I'm not sure. But each skill takes a lot of experience points. When when you reach hundreds of millions of experience points, I think 200 million experience points is the limit in RuneScape, and people have hit that. The maximum people in RuneScape have 200 million experience in total skills. That takes years of dedication. That is an extreme amount of playtime, not to mention the fact that you have to do quests on top of that if you want to get into the high scores. Those quests are necessary for the best training locations. That is something that is completely ignored in Destiny, aside from the fact that you access planets via the storyline. That sort of thing kind of is a gating mechanism, but I think Destiny needs more gating mechanisms. Gating mechanisms make people feel accomplished. When you do something and you can access an area that no one else can, that's a gating mechanism that has success. People who have reached a lighthouse, such as myself, the first time I reached the lighthouse, I glitched out of it, which... funny enough, was a blast. It only added to the happiness that I was experiencing at the time. Whenever I discover that sort of thing, it's not It doesn't fill me with a sense that this game is broken. Whenever I discover a glitch, that's sort of like something that secret that I know, but it's not secret. Everyone knows how to glitch out of the lighthouse. But to me, it was an accomplishment that only compounded onto the fact that I got to the lighthouse. You have to do something to go there. Only a select amount of people can. Now, I wish there were more gating mechanisms so that if you complete Vault of Glass on hard mode, then you can go to a new place in the game with new strikes and stuff like that. That would be awesome. That would be sort of the quests of Destiny, would be to do all of these puzzles, to meet all of these people, and then have access to a location that can give you benefits. Like, oh, give this Crucible map not through DLC, but to people who have completed this raid sort of thing. Like, oh, you've defeated Crota, now let's play Crucible in Crota's throne room. It adds to the lore. It's pretty cool because you've already defeated a god. You've pushed into that inner sanctum. We can now use this to our entertainment, and that's slightly more lore-friendly than doing kickflips around Cabal and Vex on Venus and Mars, at least in my opinion. There's also the fact that grinding that takes so much focus. Destiny doesn't really have anything that's grindable, I guess. You can grind the levels, and you can grind for materials, but other than that, you're not really doing much in the game. Doing strikes all day, every day is also considered grinding. Doing Crucible all day, every day can also be considered grinding. Grinding is a thing in MMOs, but the weird thing about Destiny is that the grind doesn't go anywhere. It's all RNG. At least in RuneScape, you grind and a skill gets increased. In Destiny, the skills are your faction, I guess. No matter what you do, your faction ranking will go up, which I guess is kind of... it doesn't get you anywhere. It doesn't really have any other benefits besides random rewards, such as the strange coins and the motes of light, but it's just something about the fact that all of your grinding is up to chance that it pays off. You have to, if you don't get that thing that you need, you keep grinding until the RNG gives it to you. And I don't think that's a good thing. Even if there was a gating mechanism, there would be someone in there who's like, oh, I just got a lucky thing on my first try. I didn't get a Galahorn until I opened a silver package in the original Trials of Osiris. A silver package. I got a Galahorn from it. And that was, I only got a couple weeks of use out of that Galahorn because it was soon to be replaced by next generation exotics, but I still felt accomplished. I'm not sure why I felt accomplished. Many people had been using Galahorn since Xur sold it for the first time in the tower. Galahorn was, in fact, for Skolas, people demanded that others had Galahorn in order to complete that Prison of Elders. And it's just my own experience that someone could be put off for so long just because of the RNG, and then just their chances are so great that there's barely even a chance to get an exotic from a silver tier, let alone a Galahorn, the one that I need. I was blown away by how lucky I was. But I could only be excited for so long as my baby galley turned into a regular Galahorn and then turned useless only a couple weeks later. I had a Celestial Nighthawk. That was pretty cool, but it's the fact that nothing really sticks with you, and the fact that older content can't be reused. In RuneScape, the new areas that you access through questing sometimes has to do directly with a quest. It could be a quest area that you can now access all the time. In the raids, that's not really a thing. You do the raids, everything resets. You do the raid, everything resets. You keep doing the raid until it's just a side quest sort of thing. It's a box on a checklist for you to do. And a lot of Destiny sites actually do have weekly checklists, like what have you done this week? You can only do this week. You can only do this week. And then you have the weekly limits for the Crucible. Let's say you really love PvP, like me. I really love PvP. You can only do this much PvP in a week to get a reward from it. And now the legendary marks. Oh, you can now get all of this stuff, but it's now shared on all of your characters and you can only hit 200. It's really weird, and I don't see too much of a reason for it. But at the same time, I wonder what they're thinking. More decisions are coming out of Bungie nowadays that really change how I viewed the original game. The original game was broken, but I didn't realize how off balance or off kilter it was compared to how it is today. When Bungie introduced skill-based matchmaking without telling anyone, that was... What else could they have done in the beginning of the game that we were just never told about, that was just changed? What in those weekly updates wasn't mentioned that they saw and were like, okay, we're going to change that back covertly? This is just an instance where people got fed up and demanded a response, and Bungie eventually said, yes, skill-based matchmaking was implemented, and we took it out. Why? What else could they have done that we just weren't aware of? I know I hound on these facts, but Bungie also included those very off numbers in the weekly update that matched nothing in-game, so they re-rounded the numbers to something that couldn't possibly be tested. Because in MMORPGs, people pay attention to stats. There are people who literally calculate every small decimal number to calculate how quickly or how worthwhile what they're doing, because it's all about time usage. When you have something that's so grindy, it's pretty much just, how do I manage my time? Tomorrow I'm going to spend this much time playing Destiny, so I expect to get this much done. If I take this many breaks and do this for this many hours, I will be at this point based on these calculations and these numbers. For Destiny, it's, I will do this. I will expect this to happen. You play the metagame. You look at all the numbers. You're like, this can't possibly lose against this unless this happens. I'm good at this. They do that. I counter with this sort of thing. There's all people who look at these small numbers. On my server, as an example, I use my server because I have people who crunch the numbers. I know people like this. Every little change I make to the server, even stuff that I make that's sort of like a flail in the darkness, like I will just change something like this, and it ends up somewhat balanced. They'll look at it very perplexedly and be like, oh, why are these numbers like this? And I didn't set the number precisely. They said, oh, this number's interesting. And I go in and look, oh, that number did change to that. And they say, oh, based on this thing that you changed, this, and this are going to be easier, but that makes this, and this harder, sort of thing. So you have people in these sorts of genres of games that will look at all of the numbers. They will crunch numbers. They'll calculate every little aspect of your game. You can't... This isn't like Halo. You don't complete a game, get a certain set of experience like it, because I didn't play Halo 5. The last Halo game I played was Halo 4. My favorite game in the Halo series was Halo Reach, because the multiplayer was one of the most interesting that I've ever played. But it's stuff like that where you don't really need to look at it. The numbers are very flat. It's based on your game performance. There's no real RNG there. But with the RNG system, the lag that makes the numbers harder to crunch, the fact that you make the numbers so obscure that someone couldn't possibly test them, that is not a solution to get rid of these people. That makes these people search for alternative methods of testing your game, which may reveal even more glitches, may even reveal more negative aspects to your game. Something that you thought wouldn't even be possible to do can be revealed just because you pushed someone who is obsessed with the data, obsessed with the numbers, over the limit. There are people like that. And if your game is in this genre and you can't deal with players doing this, then I don't know what audience you're trying to appeal to. Over half, slightly over half, of Xbox owners have children. So the demographic you're looking at is well over 20 years old, if you're talking about just Xbox owners in general. There are whole communities in Destiny. Dads of Destiny or Destiny Dads is an example of it. These people are aware. They see your business practices. They're old enough to understand what decisions you're making. They have the mental capacity to backtrack your decisions and look at the hard numbers. It's not because people hate your game, it's because the changes to your game change how they spend their time. And as an adult, time is a commodity. You have to budget your time. And if you're wasting someone's time, for instance, if someone gets really good at using hand cannons and there's a blanket hand cannon nerf, that doesn't reduce their skill with hand cannons, that reduces their effectiveness with hand cannons. They might be really accurate with hand cannons, but When I read one of the Bungie updates, it stated that they changed the meta so people change how they play to have a new experience. That sounds good on the surface, but if you are like me and you practice with a certain set of weapons, I used to be really good with scout rifles. I switched to pulse rifles because the pulse rifle meta went up, and I switched to hand cannons because I'm really good with hand cannons. And when they nerfed hand cannons, I literally could not play with hand cannons. I tried my best. I came middle of the pack with hand cannons almost every time because hand cannons were nerfed. And it wasn't because I was any worse with a hand cannon, it was because the meta had changed against hand cannons, favoring pulse rifles. So I switched to my Hawksaw. And then pulse rifles were nerfed, so I had to switch back to my hand cannons. What is the point? I'm trying to sharpen my skill with this weapon set so I can have a niche. I want to be that guy, oh, you're good with pulse rifles. Pulse rifles are good for this, this, and this. We need you here. You're good, let's go. That sort of thing. So when I had a hand cannon, it's like, you get those quick kills with a hand cannon, that thorn, good shots, let's go with that. Good. That shotgun, you do really good with that shotgun. I need someone who's good at shotguns because I'm going to be sniping. You prime them, you lure them out, you push them out of their hiding spot, you flank them with your shotgun, go invisible, hit them with your shotgun. Golden. But every time that meta changes, I have to switch my game up. Now I have to switch back to scout rifles. Now I have to switch to, well, fusion rifles. Fusion rifles are a joke, but some fusion rifles are, like, when they buffed fusion rifles, that was something. That was something. And I also heard offhand a story about, how they nerfed fusion rifles because someone at the studio was just so darn good with fusion rifles. You have people like that in the game who just have natural talent for FPSs. You can't balance the game based on people with natural talent. So all of these decisions coalesce into this one game. You have the number crunchers, you have the fact that there are very few gating mechanisms, you have the fact that people try to climb a cliff to get to a ledge, and there's nothing on that ledge but the fact that you've reached the top of that ledge, and the whole point of Destiny is to build the mountain a little bit taller so you have another ledge to climb up to. You can't be happy on your ledge. You can't replay something on the ledge below you because you've already reached that ledge. There's nothing on that ledge for you anymore. Even though the content there is of immensely high quality, there's no point. You shouldn't scale back down that mountain for the one piece of gold that they put dangling from that bottom ledge. It just takes up time, and it's not worth it. These business decisions just have people running around in circles, wasting their time. What are you trying to get out of this? What is there that the corporate psychopath can get? And this brings us full circle back to those microtransactions, back to these DLCs, back to the money. It's all just to keep you here. You ride the hype train. They just put something out, ride the hype train until the next DLC. Now what do they have? Nothing. They had their hype train, and every time their hype train went down, they just sent another one out of the station. But they're running out of cabin cars, kids. There's not that many engines left at the station to send out, to have people board up their hype trains. When the next hype train comes and it finally gets to Destiny 2, I wonder how the people there are going to react. I think it's going to be a lot like Destiny 1. It's going to be a whole lot for a whole little, and it's not going to last that long until they build another engine at the station. Spamadoo. See you next time.